as best we can, of course, and give folks another minute to come in. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I just love, you know, there's so much symmetry because you're in the for-profit space. We're in the for-profit space. You're talking about just having a marketing plan and why it's important. I just don't think that these things can be overlooked when we're talking
Yeah.
about fundraising or nonprofit or anything. It's just a label, right? At the end of the day,
Yeah.
having a plan, I think it's fantastic, man. Good stuff. Really, really good stuff. I'm digging the back. Both of you guys have great backgrounds. I'm digging the background.
Yeah. We had a proper booth at our old office, and we kind of brought the wall with us here.
I love it, man. No, it's awesome. Yeah, it sound
Yeah,
good.
mine's still work in progress. I'm slowly getting it there. These- So
It's good. No,
before the other deal was really rocking. It was cool. So
you mean at home?
yeah, I had the
Yeah.
TV behind, had all the
Yeah.
stuff and all that stuff, and then we moved to the new office, and it was like, yeah, I got to get this going on.
Yeah, that's so funny. We were talking last week. We had a friend on, Becky Felak, and we met her on the webinar, 3 years ago. And she's like, "Hey, wow, and she'd been on before and been on as a guest and attendee, and she's been on the pod and stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, we've come." She's like, "Look at your spot." I was like, "Yeah, I'm in a studio now and all that." I was like, "Remember where we started?" And Jason was in like a home office. I was in my dining room with like
Right.
some canvas, beautiful canvas my sister made behind me. And it's like, "Oh, that's cool." That's like,
Right. It
we've
works.
come a
It
long way,
works.
man. It's
Yeah.
awesome. Hey, you want me to kick us off, brother?
Let's get going, man.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. This is fun. This is going to be a really, really fun episode. Good to see you again. If you joined us before, great to see you as well. If you haven't, thanks so much for coming to the HGA free webinar series. My name's Trevor Nelson, Jason Ledlow. We're with HGA Fundraising. We provide the most profitable auction items in fundraising. But we're not going to talk a ton about items today, as a matter of fact. We might touch on it a little bit. But we've got a good friend of ours, Sam Staley, the CEO, founder of Event.Gives. And we are going to talk about, among a lot of things, we have a tendency to ramble, but it's all good and well intended about fundraising.
Good
We're going to
rambles.
talk about a bunch of stuff. We're going to talk about why it's so important to have a plan with your fundraising event, why it's so important to prepare your donors to give at your event, and also make it easy for donors to give. And we're going to give you some ideas and some actionable steps that you can use to prepare donors to give, and ideas on ways to get them to give that you had no idea even existed, as a matter of fact. So we're going to talk
Well,
about
and
basically.
I want to expand on that just for a second because
Please do, sir.
the title of the webinar is thousands of dollars. You're losing, and that's what
Correct.
we're talking about. There are
Yep.
thousands of dollars that are just there in the room that are right there, and if these are some things, if you plan for these things, they don't walk out the door
Yep. We
because
just don't want to see it
golly,
slip through your head, slip through
well,
your
you work
fingertips, so to
so
speak.
hard to get these people. You get the right people in the room. You've done all the planning. You've done all these things, and there's thousands and thousands of dollars there that are waiting to help your mission.
Yep.
But if we don't set things up prior to, we're going to miss that opportunity. They're going to walk out the door, and we're never going to get that chance again until next year, maybe. And
Agreed.
so it's really about, so all these things that we're going to talk about today are really making sure that we're prepared to be equal opportunity receivers, as we like to say. We
Yep.
want to get all the dollars, all the money,
Yep.
and you should, because you work really hard to get all this stuff set up. Don't let something, because it breaks my heart. It absolutely breaks my heart whenever I hear somebody after an event and they go, well, I was trying to buy that deal. I didn't get it done. I guess, well, maybe next year.
Hmm.
Holy smokes. That's,
Yeah.
it was a $5,000 option. And I think that's one thing, Sam, you know, the cool thing about having Sam here and why I'm so excited about it today is all the data.
Hmm.
We talk about this all the time, that we get to work with thousands of events every year, and we get all this information. We want to share it back out, and you've got the data because that's what your business. You're in the data business, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I get really nerdy about the data. I think it's where you can literally manufacture thousands of dollars out of thin air, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I know we're going to get into it, but pre-event, there's a way to think about things during the event and then post-event, and then there's lots of things. But that data in terms of, pre-event, knowing who's coming to the event, meaning who bought tickets. And usually for us, same thing, we touch thousands of events a year. And oftentimes we have seen this individual last year, certainly, but oftentimes we've seen them across at other events as well. And it's about knowing that, hey, we've got 30 people on this attendee list that have spent greater than $5,000 on art in the past. You don't have any art items in your event. Let's go get you some, right? So it's all those little things that data can uncover for you.
I love that. Yeah, capitalizing on it. Like we said, this is just a great way. We're gonna plug in all the gaps with these actionable steps and to show exactly how you can make sure that these thousands of dollars don't leave your room, because rest assured there's plenty of giving potential in the room. And we're going to talk about setting the table. Real quick house cleaning. We're going to give something away at the end, so please stay to the end and win. Jason's very generous and likes to give away money at the end of every episode. Kind of cool. It was his idea, not mine. But but hey, this is an interactive webinar. We have Sam here. You have Jason here. I'm going to pitch in a little bit here and moderate. But hey, we've got a cool chat function, Q&A function if you want to ask questions there anonymously. Totally up to you. But you've got a couple experts here. We're going to riff for an hour. Please make sure that you keep the questions coming. Anything, nothing's off the table, so to speak. So really, really appreciate it. And then I just want to get us going. We're talking about, setting the table and getting folks prepared to give. And we're going to do it in a chronological, format, and then interject some great, points along the way. Let's talk about, notifying folks of the event, Sam. Let's talk about, once again, preparing folks. Here's what's happening. This is what we did. This is what you don't want to miss out on, things of that nature.
Well, can I call an audible real quick? Can I ask something?
You sure can.
I'm just gonna ask Sam. Sam, what are the top 3 things you see money walking out the door for these events?
I think we've hit a couple. Is that, I took money out of my pocket, I put it into the room on, whatever item I was interested in bidding on. I got outbid, and maybe now it's crossed the threshold for me that I'm out on that item, and there's nothing left in the room for me. Nothing back that I'm interested in, and I put it back in my pocket and I go home. That's a big source of it.
So, in this plan, so I remember a very specific example. I had a guest at my table, friends of mine, got plenty of money, was not an issue, but at the end, he said, I would have given money at the fund of need, but I didn't know what I'd won. Okay. He said, I didn't know what I'd won.
Yep.
At the silent auction, because they weren't using software. Now, this has been a few years ago. So, I mean, this is not that. And so go ahead, please go.
I was going to say that's a great point. And even with software, I've had this conversation with, we have a lot of partner MCs and auctioneers, and we've had this conversation a lot. Even with software, you still have to know how to use it, right? And know what a proper run of show is. Because to your point, I'm sitting there, I know maybe I bid $1,200 on a guitar in the silent auction. And now you're asking me to raise my paddle for 500 or 100 or 1,000 or whatever it is. Maybe I can only give 1,000, but I don't know if I'm going to win the guitar yet because they didn't close the auction yet. So
exactly
that pattern and that cadence of the event really matters to intentionally say, we're closing this silent auction at 8 p.m. Get your bids in early so you can win. And at 8:30, we're going to have the sad puppy video to get the emotion up, and we're going to start raising paddles, right? And now you've got the right cadence for people to know, how, they're managing money on their side too, right? Oftentimes.
I love that.
So with that being said, going back to where Trevor was trying to go, and I just want to do it. So what's another one? So that's one that you mentioned. What's another one that you see where, boy, gosh, they're just people lose money on if they don't do this?
Yeah, I think a big one is, in addition to, we talked about marketing, pre-event, during event, post-event, all those sorts of things, and we'll get into the weeds of it. Yeah. But it's knowing who's coming to your event and making sure you've got opportunities for them to give. But I think a real big one people miss is inside of that who's coming are several different audiences coming from different places, different motivations. The easiest way to break that up is to say, there's a subset of these people that come in my room that I invited that I know are major donors, or I know they care about my cause. That's why I invited them. That's why they're coming. but there's a whole nother group of the friends that they invite to their table who might not have ever even heard of your cause. They just thought it'd be a fun time to come with their friend and sit at the table, maybe get a free dinner, maybe a great show, or maybe they do care about the cause, but they don't know much about it. So you've got to make sure you're resonating with your donors who you know might either have planned giving or are going to give something, but you need a message for those people who showed up with them, for them to have a why and for them to have the proper motivations as well.
Cool. Okay.
Them.
So now that we've given all that, so now at the end of this time, those two questions hopefully are going to be answered, and you're really going to make sure that those don't happen to you. And so thanks for letting me kind of go off and break up your line. Okay, so I just want to let everybody know that's what we're going to get out of this today. We're going to learn how not to let that money walk out the door.
Yep.
So Trevor, back to your point, getting those things started, you started talking about pre-event advertising.
Yeah. And preparing donors to give. Sam, talk to us about like a sweet spot. I want to get in the weeds with this and best practices for how far in advance do we, start messaging folks, start dripping out items. Once again, we're in that preparing donors to give phase. Yeah.
Yeah. I think pre-event, a lot of people, don't think about that. This is when your event starts. It doesn't start at 9 p.m. on Friday. It starts 6 weeks prior, 8 weeks prior. Right.
Yep.
And it's that, we see a lot of events going way out, maybe even 12 weeks with a save the date, right? Mm-hmm. Let's start thinking about it. And then of course we send it out, come buy your tickets, buy your table, register. That's well ahead. And for us, it's really important to think about it in terms of whether this is a new donor showing up to do it for the first time or even past donors. This is where we start our relationship with them for the event. Is 6 weeks prior, and it's that ticket purchase and that registration where we're starting to get their name. If they're buying a table or a ticket, they're going to pay for it with a card. We've now got that on file. We can start pushing them to say, hey, you bought that table, start inviting people, go in there and put names on seats for us, right? So we can count chicken and fish and all the things we need to do. So it's, there's a lot of logistics that it helps, but then it's, let's open items 3 weeks early. Let's start, notifying people that we just put a really fun and interesting new item open for bid. And just kind of, it's marketing, right? Let's tease you and get you excited and get you ready for that event coming up through marketing prior to.
Love it.
Sam, do you think, speaking about marketing, because people get this, we get these questions a lot. So people will say, well, so when we send our stuff out, they get a full media kit. And we say, look, here are things, there's full media kit and all the stuff's here so you can advertise these. And a lot of times, especially in today's world with all this information overload, do you recommend, or what we recommend, I want to see if you have a different point of view. We recommend just throughout that period of time, just advertise one thing. Mm-hmm. If you've got some kind of really great dinner with some rock star or something, just put out there that let that shine on its own, because you've got time, not just this, we're going to bombard you with all the stuff over and over and over and over and over again. Really detail in this time, because that way when somebody, they saw the first time, said, okay, the event, yeah, I'm going to go. And then they see the dinner with the rock star. Yeah, I really don't like rock music. But then they see, lunch with an astronaut. Oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. Yeah. And they really start keying in on those things. So can you speak to that, how you guys recommend people to do that?
Yeah, I think what a lot of people do is they kind of go, hey, we're having the event. Here's a link. Go learn all about it. And dump everything on you, which is fine. You need a place for people to go see everything. But yeah, to your point, let's pick something interesting and highlight that.
Yes.
And, it doesn't even need to be, and the event, it's, here's lunch with an astronaut. That's amazing. I would love to go to lunch with an astronaut. Well, you got to come to this event, right? And so it's okay to lead with that and let the event be secondary until it's time for the event to be primary, right? So, this is kind of a new concept for us that we've really been baking into a lot of our messaging is, using psychology, right? We're talking about marketing, and you should really think of this as a product that you're producing an event that is your product that you need to market, right? Think of it that way. And don't apologize for marketing to your constituency, right? This is your job. But inside of that, we've really started dialing it in, and psychology is a big component of it. So we've started actually thinking about in our messaging, let's think about, and I can kind of get in the weeds of this for anybody who's interested, but there's personality assessments. There's the DISC personality assessment that we really love to focus on. And if you've ever done one or taken one, you will be amazed at how accurate it will describe you. They are spot on, right?
You cannot. I was having a conversation this morning about it. You can't fool the test.
Yeah. That's right. Especially if you don't know you're taking the test. And that's a lot of what we do too, is we're building in little prompts to kind of get that information back from you. But the DISC, D-I-S-C, the idea of that is that everyone's personality can be broken down into these four, kind of larger states of your personality. One is, dominant personality, all down the line. But within that, we like to think about when we send a communication, let's make sure that we're intentionally including phraseology that's going to resonate with the D's and the I's and the S's and the C's. And some kind of examples of that are, I might send out something that says lunch with an astronaut. This guy's been to the moon. He's got knowledge about things that you can't know without talking to him. And these are very objective things that a high D personality would go, that makes complete sense. That sounds like a very valuable proposition that I would like to have lunch with this guy.
Yeah.
But then you talk about the stories he has, these amazing stories he has, and he's such a charismatic guy. And imagine being able to tell your friends that you had lunch with an astronaut. Now I'm hitting that personality that cares about what people think about me, and it's thinking about that and resonating with those really four basic individual traits that's going to hit every single person that you're messaging. So thinking about the psychology and how you phrase things within your messaging is really important.
I think that's a really good point. I don't think, I hadn't thought of it. I literally had a conversation about DISC test this morning, and I was telling one of our guys, and I said, there's two sides of it. We have what we call your natural, and then your implied. So we all have one, but when times of pressure and stress, we'll absolutely go to the natural. And so it was real interesting, but I hadn't thought about that from a messaging standpoint with that, because it does totally make sense.
Understanding the audience. Yeah.
Because if you're a person of if you're a compliance person, so DISC is dominance, influence, sateability, and compliance. Is that right?
I'm going to agree with you, because I was trying to think of them too, and you saw me kind of balk on it earlier, but you're close. Yeah.
So, but like compliance, that means like my wife is a C. She's an accountant, CPA. She is a compliance. She's a rule follower, paints inside the lines, never even steps on the line. Me, I'm a high DI, and I have no S and no C. And so it's kind of a funny thing when you mention that. So, wow, y'all didn't know you were going to learn all about this personality test.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
But it does matter, because that's
your audience.
how you speak to them, because some people would just blip right over that.
Yeah.
So I also like the idea that I love the different messaging tactics. Once again, we're still in the stage where we're preparing donors to give. You talked about advertising. Sam, you live in the advertising space when it comes to, highlighting what's happening, the event. You're trying to get motivated bidders and happy bidders. We'll get to that too. And I love your take on that. And people in the seat, so to speak, that are wanting to give. I just think that you can't go wrong as long as you have a plan and there's a reasoning behind it. I'm a big believer in there not being a lot left that's a mystery, so to speak, when you walk in. Like, I think that you should know that there's going to be lunch with an astronaut, as a live auction item. I don't think that should be a mystery. I don't think you should over-index folks with messaging, but that shouldn't be something where they go, oh, hey, holy smokes, when they're walking by, check in, and they see the live auction preview. Oh, I had no idea there was going to be, unless they've been hiding under a rock, or they don't check their phone, or every text and every email from the organization is going to their spam. I think these things should be known. Now I sound opinionated about it if you tell me there should be some teasers things and different opportunities to give that, play both sides. If you have,
let me, I'm going to give you a thought on this. I want to hear Sam. So
yeah, please,
because this is a real specific thing. So over the years, you'd have somebody say, hey, we're going to use this as a surprise auction item. And it's something they want to bring like $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. And I'm like, why do you want it to be a surprise? Well, we think it'll really get the room going. I said, yeah, but if nobody's ready to write a check for $20,000 for that,
yeah, we got a problem.
You got a problem.
We got a Mayday
But if
issue.
people have started preparing for it, and they're going, I really want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that, Sam.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly. And you'll tend to see me play devil's advocate with
it's okay
right?
though. Yeah, it's fine.
And so in product, and I'll put on my product hat for a moment. When I build products, I truly believe the largest driver of a product that wants you to use it is randomness, meaning what's going to happen next when I do this. I want to find out. Let me keep doing it and keep using this product, right? And then a little bit of mystery. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I was just talking about this recently when I talk about for my kids. I love to surprise them. When we go on vacation, I love to hold it back to the point where I go, hey, let's go out for ice cream down the street. And 5 hours later, we're surprised at Disney World, right? And so I love that. But I realized in doing that, I was robbing them of the anticipation of that trip and the all the time prior to the trip where they're thinking and imagining and fantasizing about how fun this is going to be.
And on their best behavior, hopefully.
Exactly. So I think it's the same. Don't rob your attendees of that anticipation of coming to the event to get to participate in this thing or have a chance at that lunch with the astronaut, right?
It's really good. Don't. I mean, when you're using the example with your children, it's like you're robbing them of some joy. I'm not pointing fingers at you, by the way, but I mean,
no, I really was
obvious.
that I had to like come to terms with that because that's 8 weeks of fun to get to think about the trip and have fun that just was gone if you don't, so
And if you got young kids like we do, using it as leverage, I would absolutely use that as leverage.
And that
because I don't like to play fair. So
speaking about playing fair, so I got another question for Sam to see if you're seeing the results of this. A lot of talk about fund a need, having the messaging, doing all that. What are you seeing as the success? And we're talking about because this is in the guise of pre-event advertisement communication. Okay. So think about this. The people that are having the most success in their fund and need, getting these matches, getting those challenges, doing that stuff and raising the most dollars. What are you seeing? Are you in their pre-event communication?
I think people are highlighting items. I think that's an easy go-to, especially if you've got some exciting ones, right? I think this is bleeding into during event a little bit, but as much as you can, I think competition really drives giving as well. I'm a competitive person. Jay, if you're a high DI, so are you. And, there's a lot of people that are. So I think fostering that by saying, hey, maybe you talk about tables. Table 3 has already raised, $4,000 and whatever this thing we're doing to raise money, and table 2 is behind. So make sure you get your table ready and primed. So I think maybe communicating a little bit of that to start creating, fostering competition is something you can do as well. In saying all of this, I do think it's important to also recognize there's a balance between these communications about this event and preparing you and getting you excited, but also remembering that you have a life and a job and other things that, there will be a time when you get in the mode of this event and it might not be now. So it's tempering it too, to make sure that you're not over messaging. I think once a week is probably as much as I would go. Maybe, once every 2 weeks when you're way out and you just kind of, then once a week, and now maybe it's every other day the week of, and it's just kind of compressing that cadence as you get closer.
Love it.
I want to just make a suggestion too. It sounds like we're always coming from a technology. We're talking about technology in this, but one of the things in technology that I would highly encourage you to do is use that technology. Pull all the major people that gave you money. Pull your top 25 people that gave you money the previous year. Number one, you want to make sure they're coming. But two, call them. Pick up the phone, give them a call. hey, I know you're coming this year. Tell me, last year you gave $10,000, you sent 10 kids to camp. I want to let you know what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Last year we sent 300 kids. This year we're trying to send 350 kids to camp. Just want to check in, make sure is there's any questions I could help? And, I want to make sure you're coming with guns a-blazing. That kind of, just having a conversation with people.
Right.
I think we underestimate how much power that has, how much authority or what that does for that person, because we're feeding their ego, number one.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, every donor I've ever met in my life has an ego. They may not be outlandish about it. They may be
Sam's
very
like
subtle. They may be
ego. Yeah.
because there's some
Absolutely.
people that want everybody to know them, and there's some people that just want to slide a check under the door and don't want any fanfare.
Yep.
But they still they want you to acknowledge that. They're looking for that acknowledgement.
I think you're 100%.
Sam. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the ego thing is so spot on because, I think sometimes ego gets a bad connotation that, that's you're bigger than yourself, but it doesn't mean that. I think the ego is some people just go, I want to have the exhilaration of raising my paddle for 10,000 people seeing me. But there's a lot of people who the ego comes from, I feel really good that I helped those 10 kids.
Yes.
And it feels good that you remember that and you're asking me to do it again. Right. And that's not a negative type of
That's
ego.
an invitation.
But it's still an ego. And they're still getting the dopamine hit in their own way from you asking and recognizing them. Right?
Something I really want to I want to drive this really hard because I think it's something that I think as professional fundraisers we miss sometimes. The people that are giving you money, especially when we start talking about the larger gifts, they were smart how they got it. They're smart how they keep it. They're smart how they invest it, and they're smart how they give it away. I have never seen somebody with significant capacity to give walk out here on the street corner and give somebody a check for $10,000. And the reason is because there's no return on investment for them. They still want a return on investment, but now it's an emotional return on investment, not a monetary return. They want to know that money went to a good purpose. They want to know that, I'm saying you're sending kids to camp, that I was able to send 10 kids to camp. Whatever your mission is, you can break it down into those incremental things. But don't underestimate how powerful that phone call is and that acknowledgement.
Pre-event.
It means a lot, because I can tell you, having been doing this for a long time, having people come up and say, well, I wish they'd have called me. Why didn't they call me? It's almost
we think they don't want to hear from us.
It's so almost crazy. Because
100%.
you got a guy that wrote a check for $10,000, and then instead of you coming to him and asking him for something, you're saying, hey, we had so-and-so give $5,000. Could you connect us with him?
Yeah.
And didn't even acknowledge the $10,000 gift that he just gave you.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's little things like that. They seem very, very subtle, very, very
huge difference.
You're like, why are they being so sensitive? Because you need to be thoughtful about this, because it's important, because they're still people. They're still, they get their feelings hurt, and it's not because they're egomaniacs or they're not. It's just a deal, and
because they're people.
I think that you really want to do that, and so you have tremendous amount of influence. And you may think you don't, well, I'm just a director. I'm the assistant director to the director of us, blah blah. It doesn't matter. If you call up and say, hey, Sam, man, I want to call you and just say, we're so excited that you're going to be back. What you did last year helped us send 10 kids to camp. And I just want to say, I'm going to ask, or is that something that you think you're going to do again? Or maybe even more?
Yeah. I think
Holy cow.
two things.
Sam, would you ever be insulted by that?
Never.
It feels good, doesn't it?
100%. In one sentence, you were recognized for helping before and were validated that they believe you can do it again, right? So all of that happens really quickly in that one sentence. But I think two things that I want to make sure we don't gloss over in everything you said, Jay, is, one, I think when that invite goes out, typically it's going to be an email, right? It's very easy. And this, I'm speaking personally here. My kids' school, we do a fundraiser there every year. And I know the email's coming and it comes out and it's, hey, we're having the fundraiser again. And I see that and I go, the school's having the fundraiser. They want everybody to come, right? Clearly. But nowhere in that sentence did I say, and they want me to come. right? That's a very
Yeah.
different dynamic. But when they call me and go, hey, making sure you're coming, now it went from they want parents to show up to this to they want me to show up to this. And I feel good and I'm happy to do it because it sounds like they really need my help. So I'm going to go, right?
I want to speak to the psychology of that real quick. I want to see if because you're a lifelong entrepreneur like I am, and Trevor as well. And so we have these conversations, but somebody who's not probably doesn't even, this has never occurred to you. So the validation that you mentioned is something that's really important because I think every entrepreneur, every person that has capacity, at some point they get this thing, it's called imposter syndrome. And it's like, well, I'm really not that important. I think I should be doing something, but maybe I'm not worthy. Or there's this, it's a funny thing. But it's important. And I think that, like you said, they validated that they need me.
Recognition.
I'm validated because you called me. I cannot understate, I think, how much power that has when you do that.
I think there's also the underlying idea that, well, they invited parents, right? If I don't show up, there's another 100 parents that will, and I won't be missed because parents will be there. But if you ask me directly and I don't show up, I'm going to be missed because I know you asked me and I'm not there, right? And so I think that's also a piece of it. But I want to make sure we're glossing over a really important point, which is, Jay, in your example, you didn't call and say, we need you to come. You donated $10,000 last year. We hope you do that again. What you said was, we need you to come. You helped send 10 kids to camp last year, and we want to send 10. You made it tangible.
It's an invitation.
Well, because
I can't stress how important that tangibleness of what I'm doing is way different than how much I'm giving. Right?
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, because it's an invitation. You're making it an invitation to participate.
Yeah, you don't have to ask anymore, everybody. Yeah, you don't have to ask anymore. That's the cool part. Yeah, Jay, and Sam believes in the same way. It's hopefully it's a big shift for everybody in how they approach asking and inviting. And if you go back, but like Sam said, and Jason said this as well, and taught me this, if you go back to the mission, and hey, also by the way, if you have any problems, if you're running up against a roadblock, about how to quantify that to someone over the phone or have that conversation with someone, sign up for a free coaching session. It's free. And Jason will spend some time with you. If you're up against, hey, we serve 13 different programs and this, that, and the other thing. It's not easy for us to say it costs $1,000 to send a kid to camp, but we wish it was. But there is a way that you can work with it and, and talk about your mission's message and how you're doing that. Spend 30 minutes with Jason if you like doing that. Like I said, it's free. So
it really does. It changes the entire part about giving. And you can tie everything to it.
It's an invitation, not an ask.
So
hey, I want to get in. We have a great question, by the way. So thank you, Kendra. Great question. And that actually segues really, really nicely because I want Sam to talk about just, the right way to go about opening up your event, how far in advance. Of course, there's not a perfect answer for everybody, 5, 7 days, things like that. But Kendra had a great question. She said, we launch our silent auction 5 days ahead of our in-person event. Are you suggesting that we at least show what live auctions will also be available in person? My suggestion is yes. I want to hear from you, Sam, and Jay as well, on the same site. Absolutely. Do you think 5 days is a good time frame? Yeah, okay, absolutely. Last year, we started with $10,000 in the door at the start of the event. Fantastic. You got money raised before you even started. Instead of starting from zero, I think that plays a big part psychologically for preparing folks to give. And we also saw activity from people who wouldn't attend, new donors and new places. And thank you for the presentation. Oh, well, thank you, Kendra. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. But yeah, great. I love all that. Those are all great questions. Sam, talk to us about timeline when you're opening the site and then, previewing items, stuff like that, and how to foster the giving that she's talking about if they're not even going to make it to the event.
100%. I think we've said a little bit of this already. So, the short answer is yes, open early, let people know about it, get that momentum started.
No mysteries.
Yep. And, I might not have come if I didn't know you had lunch with an astronaut, right?
Correct.
So now I'm one more person in your event giving, right? Just in all that matters. So yes to that. $10,000 in the door at the start of the event. Yes, phenomenal. I think people, and I've seen this in real time where there was an ask started and they put up a thermometer, and the thermometer had this really awkward, big, fat $0 because we were starting from scratch, right? And you had all these dynamics all of a sudden of who's going to break the ice, who's going to raise their hand first, and is it 100 or is it 1,000? Like, what's the tone of giving in this room? So it was really hard to establish. Very different than, guys, we've already got $10,000. That means everybody else is already doing it. And let's join in the fun. Let's join in the helping. Let's join in the fundraising because it's already started without you. And
Love it.
That momentum, that excited is important to pull me along, right? Versus that awkward silence of crickets, we're at 0. Who's going to start us,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think I've got an opinion on one. I think you absolutely should talk about the live auction because I have personally been in situations. Well, I just bought some. I'm going to just tell you, I bought something at a live auction that I did not go to. Why did I buy it? Because I wanted it. I bought it there, and it was half of a beef. I wanted it.
Oh yeah.
I bought half a
I
beef.
would buy.
I didn't
I
go
own
to the
half of
event.
that half a beef. I own
And
half of
I
that.
told, and I gave him
That's
I gave him a
quarter,
bid.
Trevor,
I
by
said,
the way.
"This is how much I'm not going to be able to be there because I'm out of town. I'll pay you this much money for it.
Yep.
And I had to tell the auctioneer, not a nickel over this,
Yeah.
but this
Oh,
is
it's so
what, because
funny.
I know he would run me, because he's a friend of mine. He's a really good friend of ours, and it would be fine if he did. But what I'm saying is, but I did, and I wound up buying it.
Yep.
And the whole thing is if I hadn't known it was going to be there in the event, I wouldn't have ever done that. I wouldn't have bought it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, you have this so much opportunity out there. There's so many people that are never going to come to your event. It's like we talk about underwriting. Terry Bailey. Terry's the executive director there, the CEO for the organization.
She sold us the beef.
Yeah, she sold the beef. My Kobe beef.
That's awesome.
Well, what I was going to say is,
No mysteries.
when you're going through this and you're reaching out to people and you're telling people what you've got, it's like underwriting. It's kind of like whenever you're having these underwriting of possibilities, because somebody goes, let's say I call Sam again and I say, "Hey, Sam," I said, "Hey man, I'm so excited. We got our event coming up this year." And Sam goes, "Yeah, remind me that date." "Oh, it's going to be October 15th. And he goes, "Oh man, Jason, I don't know what October 15th is. Man, I've got to be out of town." As soon as anybody, show of hands, anybody had that happen?
Oh yeah.
I've had it happen to me.
Okay. Nobody's going to click on it. So, but then you think, well, maybe next year. Thank you, Terry. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. So all of a sudden you think, well, gosh, well, maybe next year. Holy cow. You're using software like what Sam has, like Event.gives. You just go, hold on just a minute. Sam, no
I'll send
worries,
you
brother.
my
Hey,
list of
I'm going
underwriting
to send you a link real quick with an email for underwriting. You don't have to be there. There's no seats with it, but I know that you care about our mission. It'd be a great way for you to be able to help.
Yep.
Yeah.
Instantly, you've opened up this, this other avenue for them to be able to part of your mission to help you raise these dollars pre-event that walk in the door because of one more thing of pre-event, that so many dollars walk away because Sam gave us $10,000 last year. He sent 10 kids to camp. He's obviously in. He likes our mission. He wants to do something, but because we said only thing we've got is a table and he can't be in town, well, sorry, I'm not going to be there.
I see that so much, and more so recently, I believe, is these underwriting, these sponsorship opportunities. And again, I think, making them tangible is a really easy way to get people. In your example, I couldn't go, "Hey, can you sponsor our step and repeat at the door for $1,200?" Right?
Yep.
Your logo is going to be all over it. Or can you sponsor the bar? Or, come up with all these things. You've got a room full of things. Throw a sponsorship opportunity on all of them, right?
Yep.
And I think, Kendra, one thing I want to go back to her point,
Please.
to get in Jason, yours of, hey, here's as high as I'll go on that half beef. I'm your guy at that number. So, you know, if it goes for that, I'm your guy. Getting as many of those as you can is really important for during the event. And this is very strategic, and there's nothing wrong with it, to kind of hold those in your back pocket to go, all right, they're going to open that beef up at $1,200. I don't know what these things cost. I don't know if that's the right number or not. $1,200, and you're going to start getting a paddle at 14, and now we're at 15, and now we're at 16. We're at 1650, and we're kind of stalling out. Well, Jason, if you told him you'd go to 18, this is a great time to throw 18 out there, not at the beginning to crush everybody from the get-go, but to get me one more bid. And now that person who was like, I'm already at 16. All right, I'll go to 19, right?
Yeah.
And so thinking in those terms of saving those things for the right moment to introduce them into the room, right? That's all really important strategically as well.
But again, that's just money that would have, opportunity that would have walked out the door and you'd miss out on. And you know, it's just there. Hey,
now you're blending. We don't have very much time.
Yeah, we got to crank on some stuff. So give us the top two things during the event.
Yep.
I've got one that I want to hit on, but during the event, using, you know, the data, the people there that you see where money walks away. We talked about one in the very beginning of the event, of the webinar. What you see money walking out the door that they can capture.
Yeah, on the way there, I want to say one thing, because I think this is the most important thing at an event. I'll make sure we don't miss it. This is night of, at the door. There's nothing more important than that experience of getting through the door. If I have to wait in line for 30 minutes because you're trying to collect everybody's credit card on file and their cousin's name at check-in, I'm not in a giving mood. I'm not happy. And that's, you know, we think about how do we shave 3 more seconds off every check-in, because our job is to fill that room with happy people ready to give, right? And that's so important. But the data real time in the room, a couple of things that come to mind for me, you know, when we have, you know, we're partnering with an auctioneer and MC on stage during that fundery, the paddle raise, during the live auction, we actually provide a teleprompter that he can see right on stage. And because of data, we can stream to him real time to say, hey, I'm going to use my art example again. You got a piece of art that you're at $5,000 on. You're trying to get that next paddle raise. There's a guy named Larry sitting in the back of the room. We've seen him spend $9,000 plus on art at 5 events in the past. Call Larry out and get him to bid on this because he has the means and he likes art, right? So that's a huge one. Funded needs, same thing. It's kind of like figuring out, you know, hey, we've got someone who bid on something at $1,200. They lost it. We know they got $1,200 to bid. Like, call them out, right? And I don't think people mind it. That's why they're there.
They don't
give and do.
They do
right?
not.
And so I think that's really important.
You're saying
specific ask.
I want you to talk about that just a little bit, you know, or we'll just unpack it. You had someone that wanted an item. They bid $1,200. I also heard you say this. I want you to speak to it, but you don't ask them to give 100. Yes. They were already willing to give 12. Maybe you don't ask them to give 12, but you want that number to be $500, $600, $700, $800 of
That's
compelling
exactly
reason
right.
and more, and because they were willing to give. At that level.
They already said it, right? They already took it out of their pocket and put it in the room to said, I will give you this money for that guitar. So they have it, right? It was in the room, get it back in the room, right? And so, and that bleeds a little bit into post-event, and I don't want to jump ahead. I know there's more.
No, it's okay. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
But post-event, I hear a lot of times where people go, okay, we had our event. We're so grateful that people came and gave. And now it's time for thank you letters. And this is the time for thank you. And it's bad practice to ask for more money. I don't agree with that. I think the event is your moment to ask. And you showed the sad puppy video. You got the emotion up. And now it's the next day, or at least that week, when we're saying thanks for coming, thanks for giving. It's still the right time. That mission is still recent enough in my head. And for you to go, we had a goal of 300,000. We got to 289. We just would really love your help pushing us over. And here's 3 buttons. And because I know data wise, you were going to spend 1,200. To your point, the buttons aren't 5, 10, and 20. they're 500, 700, and 800, right? And so all of that data packed behind making sure we still okay ourselves to continue to ask to reach our goal. And if I reached my goal, guess what? I got a stretch goal. We want to help 40 more kids. Let's just keep going, squeeze as much out of this event as we can. And that email is still your moment.
Can you do that 24 hours post event?
I think as recent as possible, right?
Okay,
Because
cool.
you still want me remembering the sadness I felt when I watched it. I always say the sad puppy video. You want me still having a little bit of that emotion lingering, right?
Right.
And I still, by the way, that $1,200, I haven't spent it on a golf cart yet or something else. It's still in my pocket, right? So as recent as possible.
Cool.
And I think to your point, let's just say that your event's on Saturday night. Somebody goes, well, we don't want to send anything on Sunday morning. Yes, you do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's fresh on their mind. You know, they're getting up, they're going, oh man, you know what? We forgot, we never did anything last night on the Fund of Need. Let's do it now. They need our help.
We didn't get that live auction item.
You can't, and I can't even begin to tell you, how many times somebody gave something in the Fund of Need, they see that you still haven't made your goal, they give more. Because they've got it to give. But if you don't communicate that and you don't tell them, you don't give them that opportunity, they won't do it. So even if you hit your goal, celebrate. Oh my gosh, we hit our goal. We're going to see if we can go to our stretch goal of X and push. Yeah. Because again, you did all this work, all this effort, spent all this time, all the money, everything, all the blood, sweat, and tears that went in to get these people together. Don't let any of it slip through your fingers that you possibly can.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you guys a question real quick. We got the experts on, everybody, and it's another call for questions. Do you advertise because we were talking about mysteries, but we're talking about, leaving nothing to chance as far as understanding the items and what have you. Do you advertise the goal early and often? Do you advertise the stretch goal just so it's embedded in people's minds so you can ask later? Things like that. Sam, tell me.
100% for me, yes. Okay. It's all about the same as don't start the evening at 0, start it at 10,000 in Kendra's example. Yeah. You want momentum. You don't want everybody going, well, gosh, nobody's giving.
Who's going to be the first one?
Right. Yeah. And so maybe the cause isn't that great if nobody else is giving. That maybe there's something I don't know, right?
Sure.
So 100% yes. And I have just recently kind of this light bulb's gone off for me, and this might be kind of a nerdy example, so I apologize. But
that's good.
There's a platform, if you don't know, called Kickstarter, which is where people kind of develop products and they put it on this Kickstarter platform that says, I've got an idea for a floating coffee mug, and I'm going to produce it if I can get enough people to commit to buying it for $50. Mm-hmm. And if I get 1,000 people that say, I'll buy the mug, I'm going to produce the mug. But then they all have these stretch goals that say, if I can get 2,000 people, then the mug is going to come in 5 different colors or whatever the case may be. And it's the same thing. I say, think of this like Kickstarter to go, we have a goal of $300,000, and even better, we have a goal of sending 300 kids to camp. And our stretch goal is if we can send 300, our stretch goal is to see if we can send 350 and provide them all with backpacks or whatever it is. Love right. It. So stretch goals, I think, are phenomenal. It just gives you that right to keep going. And you didn't just make it up that, we want more money now, right? It's a stretch goal that luckily we now get to go for.
So good.
Something I want to hit on real quick. We're coming up on the end of it, and we'll get you out of here on time. I promise.
We needed 2 hours before we ask folks for another hour right now. We better, we got 10 minutes.
Talk to us about using data in real time at the event for things like I'm going to give a great example. Here's a great example. Let's just say that we had 3 people who bid on a trip to Costa Rica. Okay. Yep. So they bid on a trip to Costa Rica. 3 people did. One person bid, $3,800, one at $3,700, one at $3,600, but you sold it for the one at $3,800, but you still got 2 people underneath there that did it. Using that data at real time, going to those people, making that question, making that, asking for that opportunity to sell it to them, how that works.
Yeah, I think, when we talk about live auction and particularly the live auction, to your point, and it's what's so great about what you guys do. You provide these phenomenal opportunities and experiences and trips and things. But not only that, you can sell for them, however many you need, right? And so it creates this dynamic in room, to your point, where I've gotten 5 people, racing to win this thing, and a great auctioneer knows how to play them against each other. But he also knows, and when I get on that final number, I'm immediately going to go, and you, sir, can go too, because I got 2 of them. And I even have 3 if all of you want to go, right? So that is 100% important. The way we kind of add to that from a technology and data standpoint is we actually have algorithms that we can go, is it more advantageous to close that item right now and sell 2 of them? Or is it more advantageous to try to get 3 more bids before you do that, right? And it's informing that auctioneer when's the right time to call it on this and try to sell 2 of them, or should I squeeze a little bit more out of the one first, right? And so I think data is really important and allows us to help with those sorts of things.
I want to just say it is good but I'm saying, I'll tell you this, it works for the silent auction too, for those same kind of things, because you've got somebody there, and this is all you have to do. Find somebody that one of those fearless volunteers who knows everybody, got a smile on their face, have them walk up and go, hey, Sam, I know you didn't win your bid. You bid, $2,800 or $3,800 on the Costa Rica trip. I know you didn't win, but we've got another one. If you're still good at 3,800 at that bid, we'll do this, and we can help send 3 more kids to camp.
Yeah.
When you do that, they've already said yes to the dollar amount once. They've already said yes. The potential is they'll say yes again.
Mm-hmm. Especially
now, if it sells for 4,000, you're trying to get them to raise up $200. It's 50-50 where they'll do it.
Yeah.
But it's almost 99% of the time they'll say yes. But if you don't ask them, they're not going to come and pick up the phone and go, hey, Trevor, was there another Costa Rica trip that I could buy for my $3,800? They're just not going to, because they don't. Exactly it never occurred to them, because unlike you, they're there for the event and then they move on. So we want to keep, that's the whole thing. We keep talking about this, to keep it in front of them, because they got to think about going to Little League practice. They got baseball games the next day, or they've got church. They got something going on, life, and they're going to move on. But if we remind them, especially the night of, it gets really exciting. And that's just another way that you can keep those dollars in.
Yeah. One thing I'll just throw out really quickly. I know we're close on time, but I've seen this in real time, and it's so powerful. And it goes back to that psychology. And it also, those people who are maybe guests or guests of guests who aren't really there for the cause, they're there for the fun of the evening. But I've seen at the end of the night, they'll have a raffle opportunity, call it chance, or, if your state doesn't like that word. And they'll go around the room with a big basket at the end of the night, and they'll go to every table and go, hey, we've got this final raffle. It's a trip, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And to enter, all you do, we're also kind of starting to clean the room up, throw your paddle into this basket, and that's you entering the raffle. But it's $100. If you throw your paddle in this basket, that's $100 that's going to go into your cart, right? And I love it. When they're going around the table, and you're at a 10-person table, and he threw his and she threw hers and him, and when they get to you, guess what you're going to do? You're going to put your paddle in the basket. You're not going to be the guy who didn't, right? Yeah. And that, $100 times 600 people in the room, there's a nice little boost right at the end, right? It's all these little things that help.
Love that. Really good. Really
good. We've talked about things to do pre-event. We've talked about during event, and we've talking about post-event. All these things, and it sounds overwhelming to a lot of, I'm sure for a lot of folks, it sounds overwhelming. And what I want to just encourage you to do is to what we talked about. Put this down in your plan and your run a show, and just add it into the things. You may not be able to get everything done, but at least add 1, 2, or 3 of these ideas. And I promise you will see a return on that investment of time and effort. And because you work so hard to do these. There's so much work, so much effort. You guys put so much blood, sweat, and tears in them, and this is just a way to help that. And, your mission, if your mission is sending kids to camp, this could be the difference between sending another 5, 10 kids to camp. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really.
I love it.
Significant.
Hey, I want to talk. Go ahead.
Go ahead, bro. Please. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, well, quickly, because we have, 4 or 5 minutes. I want Sam to talk about how less is more. We're talking about not letting money slip out the door, so to speak, right? And fall through our fingertips. Um, we, we were talking about getting on the phone with someone before the event, talking about what they did, how amazing it was that they helped last year, inviting them to help again. And I was thinking immediately how much better your time is served as a nonprofit professional as opposed to going out and procuring a couple of bottles of donated wine that you could sell for $75 when you have the opportunity. And people have wine's pretty darn ubiquitous. It's great. I know people love it. I get it. But Sam and I were talking last week about how less is more and quality over quantity with auction items, and how that can actually less if you are procuring the lunch with an astronaut, a great trip in it or experience, maybe a few of them, for instance, and how you can mobilize more dollars and get folks giving more for items they actually want. Now, I'm not saying, once again, and I'm not ostracizing you if you use the donated bottles of wine. I get it. There's a place, sure. But 50 silent auction items that don't have a value of more than a few $100s, you're leaving money on the table. And the reason why is you're not giving donors, prepared donors, something that they want to give, right? Something with higher perceived value. So talk to me about that, Sam, because you put it really eloquently when you're talking about quality versus quantity and how that will end up raising you more money if you have less items of the right types of items.
Yeah, I think all of that's true. And even when you get down to the underlying nuts and bolts of it, a lot of people don't think about this. Your staff and your time is valuable.
No
and
question.
to take the time to procure a $50 item and put it on a table and print a piece of paper out that goes with it and put it in your auction, you're going to spend $200 worth of your time staff to put this $50 item in the room, right? Yep. And you multiply that times 40 $50 items and you've already lost money. So I think that's a dynamic people don't think about a lot. I'm not saying don't have $50 items, because there's a whole range of levels people can participate in your event, but make sure you think about that, right? But yeah, I think I also like to break attendees down into two other main areas, which are there are people there who are there to give, sometimes planned giving, and you just know it's planned, they're going to do it, but they know, look, I'm going to this fundraising event, I'm there to help the kids, I'm going to donate money, and if I happen to win something, that's a bonus, right? I'm going to spend the money anyway, but if I spend it and win something, that's just a bonus. And then there are people there who want to get a good deal on a trip to Costa Rica, and that's okay too. So I think it's making sure you're thinking about items in that way and providing them in a way that is allowing both of those parties to buy, right?
Agreed.
But yeah, I think oftentimes we do find experiences always win over things. I can say that for sure. Local experiences are great. I'll go all the way down to my kids' school. The biggest selling item is getting to go see a movie with the principal. It's crazy, but all the kids want to do it. Yeah. And so I always say, those local things, the things that are local to you and what people know, you got to have them, but you need to also spice it up and kind of bring the level up by having oftentimes things that you were able to procure, Costa Rica trips, Napa Valley trips, all of those experiences that are heightening the level of your fundraising event, right? So the mix of all of those is important.
Love it. Yep. Great. Quality over quantity. Love it. Okay.
Hey, I'm going to share my screen because we've got a winner.
Okay.
And
I think everyone on here today won, by the way. I think we're all winners.
Can I give one shout out to Kendra? She asked great questions.
Yes,
and I love that she threw a link in there and promoted her event. Good job, Kendra.
That's awesome.
Right on, Kendra. Cool. Thank you for coming. Yeah, thanks for the feedback.
Our winner is Lori Holmquist. Lori Holmquist, reach up there and touch the bar. Hit the spin. Come on, push it one more time. There it is. And we're going to see what you won. We do need to get these colors. It's the color of money, though.
It's pea soup. It looks like pea soup to me, but it's okay.
A little bit, yeah.
All right. Lori got $300 in HJ bucks that you can use.
Right on, Lori.
item. So thank you, Lori,
I
so
told you
much for
Jason
being
likes to give
here.
away money. I told you this.
I
don't know why
do.
he keeps doing it. Yeah, add
Um,
that up over 50 times a year. See how much okay.
yeah.
You're very generous,
So
man.
I
But
try to be. Well, it's your money too. I'm giving away. So
yeah,
it's
no, yeah. Just like the half of beef is half
Even
mine.
easier.
Yeah,
Even
exactly.
Hey, thanks so much, Sam. Always a pleasure, brother. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
guys.
Really, really great. The feedback's already great. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Lori. We'll have someone reach out from our team.
Yep.
Everybody, we'll be back here next Thursday. Feel free to reach out to us. We're going to send out the recording with ways that you can contact Sam, ways you can contact Jason and myself. We're all very, very easy to reach, and we're all very eager to help whatever you need. Of course, anything under the sun fundraising, we're happy to talk about it. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We'll see you all next Thursday. Have a great afternoon. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.